The first crack of a rifle in the Texas dawn was the only welcome Tabitha Vance got. The stagecoach jolted to a halt, and her heart hammered against her ribs like it was fixing to bust out. She'd left Boston to bring a little civilization to the Wild West, but it seemed the West had other plans for her. If you've ever felt like a fish out of water, you are going to love Tabitha's story, so be sure to subscribe. The journey continued after the scare, but a sense of dread stuck to her like mud. She remembered the rich cattle baron, Caleb Montgomery, telling her she was hired to teach his two wild children. But that was only half the story, as it turned out. There's also my foreman, Russell Blackburn, he had admitted with a sly look. He's the meanest man in Texas, with a temper like a cornered rattlesnake. Montgomery actually expected her, a proper schoolteacher, to tame this wild cowboy. She thought she must have been completely out of her mind to ever say yes. By midday, the stage rolled into a dusty little town called Cottonwood Creek. A friendly young man named Charlie was there to fetch her for the final 2-hour ride to the ranch. He loaded her bags, helped her onto the wagon, and then gave her a long, curious look. "If you don't mind me asking, ma'am," he started, "what in the world brings a lady like you all the way out here?" "My foreman, Russell Blackburn, is the best cattle hand in Texas, but he is also the meanest man I know. He spooks the hired men, scares off a very decent woman for 50 miles, and has a temper like a rattlesnake. If those children are to have a proper life, he needs to be civilized too." Tabitha just stared at him, shocked. "And you expect me to tame him?" Montgomery simply smiled. "You tamed an entire class of rowdy boys at your school in Boston. If anyone can bring Blackburn around, it is you." Now, rattling along in the stagecoach, Tabitha wondered if she had lost her mind. She was a school teacher, not some kind of lion tamer. What did she know about wild cowboys? By noon, the stagecoach rolled into Cottonwood Creek. It was a dusty frontier town that was not much more than a main street and a few alleys. The buildings looked like they might just fall over in the next strong wind. Tabitha stepped out of the coach, her legs shaky from the long trip, and blinked in the harsh Texas sun. "Miss Vance?" She turned to see a young man in his early 20s holding the reins of a wagon. He had a friendly face full of freckles. "Yes, that is me. I'm Charlie. Mr. Montgomery sent me." He took her trunk and her small bag, loading them with care. "It is another 2 hours to the ranch, I am afraid. I hope you are not too worn out from your trip." "I will manage," Tabitha said, though she was just about exhausted. As Charlie helped her onto the wagon, he gave her a curious glance. "If you do not mind me asking, miss, what brings a lady from Boston clear out to Texas?" "I'm the new governess for Mr. Montgomery's kin," she answered, smoothing her dusty skirt. Charlie let out a low whistle. "Well, those two are a handful. You've surely got your work cut out for you." He clicked at the horses, and the wagon rolled on. "And then you got Blackburn," he added. "Mr. Blackburn?" she asked, but Charlie's face had gone grim. He's meaner than a cornered rattlesnake. Not a man you speak of in polite company. He's run off half the hands, and the other half are too scared to leave. The only reason he's still foreman is because he's the best cattle man around." "I see," Tabitha said, her voice barely a whisper. A knot of worry tightened in her stomach. "There was another lady before you," Charlie went on. "A Miss Prescott. She was here to teach the children, but she only lasted 2 weeks. Said she couldn't take Blackburn's awful temper or his rough talk." "How many others have there been?" "4 in the last year," Charlie said, a little too brightly. "You're number 5. Tabitha felt her heart sink. Now she'd handled tough situations back in Boston, teaching boys from the rougher parts of town. She knew all about rowdy boys, but this felt entirely different, out here in the wide open. This was more than just minding children. This was about standing up to a difficult grown man, a man everyone said was just plain dangerous. "Tell me about the children," she said, changing the subject. "Emma is 8 and Billy is 6. Their mother, Mr. Montgomery's sister, passed from a fever last spring. Their daddy was lost in the war, so their uncle took them in. They are good kids, just wild as weeds, and maybe a little too smart for their own britches." They talked of other things as the wagon rumbled on. Charlie pointed out the sights, but Tabitha's mind was stuck on what was waiting for her. When they finally reached the Montgomery Ranch, the main house was bigger than she'd ever imagined. It was a huge two-story place with a big, welcoming porch and tall, clear windows. It looked like a fancy townhome set down in the middle of all this wild country. As they pulled up, Tabitha saw two little figures tearing out from behind the barn. They were hollering and running wild. The little boy was barefoot, with his shirt hanging out. His hair was a mess of sun-bleached curls. The girl's dress was torn and muddy at the bottom, and her dark braids were coming loose. "Well, there are your students," Charlie said with a big grin. Before she could even answer, the children saw the wagon and stopped dead in their tracks. They stared right at her with matching suspicious eyes. "Look, it is another one," the boy Billy said. "Uncle Celis said this one is from Boston," Emma shot back. "Boston ladies never last," Billy stated. He said it like he knew everything. Tabitha squared her shoulders and stepped down from that wagon all by herself. "Assistants, I am not just any Boston lady," she said firmly. "I am Miss Vance, and I am your new governess." The children shared a look, clearly not impressed. "Miss Prescott said the same thing," Emma noted. She left crying. "Well, I do not cry easily," Tabitha replied, looking that little girl straight in the eye. A loud ruckus from the corral suddenly got their attention. Angry voices carried on the hot afternoon air, then something hit the ground with a hard thud. "That'll be Blackburn," Charlie muttered, nodding toward the noise. "Breaking in new ranch hands and new horses." Tabitha looked over. A group of men were gathered around a corral where a beautiful black stallion was bucking hard, trying to throw its rider. That rider was a tall, broad-shouldered man in a dusty hat, and he stayed in that saddle, moving with the horse like they were one. Even from far off, he was something to see. "Is that him?" she asked, unable to tear her eyes away. "No, ma'am," Charlie said. "That is just Miguel. He is our best rider. Blackburn is the big fella with the red beard by the fence." Tabitha moved her gaze to the man Charlie pointed out. He had his back to them, but he was still a frightening sight, well over 6 feet tall, with shoulders like a bull and his arms crossed over his chest. He stood like he owned the whole world and hated it. As if he felt her watching, the man turned around. Their eyes met across the yard, and Tabitha felt a jolt like lightning run right through her. His hat cast a shadow over his face, but she could see a strong jaw, that red beard, and eyes that seemed to burn. For a heartbeat, they just stared. Then he deliberately turned his back on her, dismissing her like she was nothing. Tabitha's cheeks flushed hot, partly from embarrassment and partly from anger. So this was Russell Blackburn, the man she was here to tame. He was about to learn that Tabitha Vance was not a woman who could be so easily dismissed. "Miss Vance?" a deep voice called, breaking the tense moment. Celis Montgomery walked down the steps, looking just as proper as he had in Boston, all dressed up despite the dusty surroundings. "Welcome to the Montgomery Ranch. I see you have already met the children." "Yes, Mr. Montgomery," she said, pulling her eyes away from Blackburn's back. "We were just getting to know each other." "Excellent," Montgomery said, though his smile was cold. "Charlie will take your things up. Children, y'all help Miss Vance get settled, then show her the ranch. I'm afraid I have business in town." And with that, he turned and left, climbing into a buggy. Tabitha watched him ride off, feeling completely abandoned. "He is always busy," Emma said, as if she could read her mind. "Come on, your room is upstairs." The children led her into the house, which was just as grand on the inside. All the fine things spoke of just how wealthy Montgomery was. Her room was simple and sturdy, with a big bed and a desk. Through the window she saw the corral, and Mr. Blackburn still watching his men. Emma told her the supper is at 6 as her trunk hit the floor. "When Uncle is gone, Mr. Blackburn always eats with us." Tabitha felt a pit in her stomach. "Yep," Billy added. "He just stares," made the last teacher cry. "Well, I will not be crying," Tabitha stated plainly. "Now let's see the rest of this house." The children gave her a quick and confusing tour of the place. They pointed out the sunny little schoolroom where she would be teaching. Then they pulled her outside to see the stables and the garden patch. "Stay clear of the bunkhouse," Emma warned, pointing to the long building. "Mr. Blackburn says it is no place for a lady." "Is that so?" Tabitha thought to herself. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows, a loud bell rang. "That is for supper," Billy yelled, running for the main house. Tabitha walked slowly, bracing herself to finally meet Russell Blackburn face to face. She was determined to make a good first impression this time. She changed into a plain blue dress and put her hair up neatly. She might not be a beauty, but she carried herself with pride. In the dining room, the children were already seated and fidgeting at the table. Mrs. Garcia, the housekeeper, was serving a hearty stew, but Blackburn's chair was empty. "Where is Mr. Blackburn?" Tabitha asked as she sat down. "Still washing up," Mrs. Garcia said. "He's a rough man, but always clean for supper." Just then, the door swung open and in walked Blackburn himself. He looked even bigger up close, with a wildness that soap could not wash away. His beard was trim, but his mouth was set in a permanent frown. But his eyes, they were a startling bright blue under his heavy brow. Those eyes looked her over, judging and dismissing her all at once. "Miss Vance," he grumbled, "I hope you last longer than the one before you." He sat down without waiting for a reply. She looked right at him. "I certainly intend to, Mr. Blackburn." He just grunted and reached for the bread. They all say that. The meal was quiet and uncomfortable. The children were silent under his heavy gaze. Tabitha tried making small talk, but he only gave one-word answers, glancing at her nervously. Blackburn ate his supper like a man who saw food as fuel, not fun. "Mr. Blackburn," Tabitha finally said, unable to take the quiet any longer, "I hear you've been working on the Montgomery ranch for a good long while." He met her gaze. "5 years. And you are from nowhere, I would know." "You might be surprised," she replied. He snorted. "I doubt that. Boston ladies don't see the places I have." "And what sort of places are those?" "The kind a decent woman shouldn't know exist." Tabitha didn't take the bait. "Well, I hope we can have a friendly working relationship. After all, we will be seeing a good bit of each other." He just raised an eyebrow. "I will be teaching the children and you eat with the family." "Teaching them what?" he demanded. "How to talk all fancy and pour tea. They do not need that out here. They need to know how to survive." "Education is survival, Mr. Blackburn," she shot back. "Even in Texas, they need to read, write, and do their numbers." "They can already do all of that," he said. "Emma is sharp with figures, and Billy reads better than my men." Tabitha was taken aback. This was not what she expected from the gruff foreman. "Well, there is still history and science." "Science?" Billy perked up. "Like experiments? And things that blow up?" the boy asked with wide eyes. "Can we blow something up tomorrow?" he asked. "Absolutely not," Tabitha said firmly. "Why not?" Blackburn challenged, the hint of a smile finally on his face. "Sounds like a practical lesson to me." "Mr. Blackburn, I would appreciate it if you did not undermine my authority," she said, trying her best to stay calm and composed. "Just giving my opinion, Miss Vance," he said, the smile vanishing in an instant. "After all, Mr. Montgomery hired you partly because I recommended it." "You recommended me?" "He showed me your letter. I said you sounded too proper to last a month out here. But at least you had experience with boys who were not born rich." He pushed back from the table. "Now, if you will excuse me, I have work to do." And with that, he was gone. Tabitha just stared after him, feeling confused and more than a little annoyed. She came here expecting a simple brute. But Russell Blackburn was far more complicated. He was rude, for sure, but there was a sharp mind in there and maybe some old hurt, too. "He's not always so friendly," Emma said quietly. "That was him being nice?" Tabitha asked in disbelief. "Once, for him, talking that long is just about a friendly welcome." "Well now," Tabitha thought, "if that's him being nice, I've got a long row to hoe." Getting those little ones to bed that night was a real chore, that is for sure. After much chasing and coaxing, she kept finding her eyes drawn to the window, looking out on the yard. She saw Blackburn moving about, giving orders, and checking on the livestock. Even in the dim light, he had a powerful presence. Shaking her head, she went and tucked the children into their beds. She promised them lessons in the morning, then headed off to her own room. She sat down to write in her journal, but the words just would not come. How could a person even begin to describe Russell Blackburn? He was complicated. He was mean and intimidating, but also smart and watchful. If he truly cared, maybe he was not the monster folks made him out to be. She closed the book. She decided to wait and see. It was only her first day, after all. That whole first week just flew by in a blur of chores and lessons. Tabitha got the kids into a good routine, with schoolwork every morning right up until noon. Afternoons were for playing outside and learning new things. To her delight, both Emma and Billy were sharp as tacks and eager to learn. She just had to aim their energy right. She hardly ever saw Mr. Blackburn, though. He was gone before the sun came up and only came back for a quiet supper. Now and then she would catch a glimpse of him from the schoolroom window. He would be striding across the yard or working cattle way out in the pasture. When she thought he could not see her, she studied him. For a big man, he moved with grace. He moved like a man who belonged right where he was, confident and sure. Whatever else he was, that man surely knew his work. On her 8th day, Tabitha decided to take the lessons outside. The weather was just too nice to stay cooped up. "All right," she said, shutting the book with a snap. "Today we are going to learn all about plants." Billy looked at her sideways. "What in the world is that?" "We're going to find different plants," she said. Emma was not impressed. "That sounds boring." "Not one bit," Tabitha promised her. "It is like being a detective. Every plant has a story, you see. Some are for medicine and some are for food. It is good to know the difference." Even a poisonous plant could save your hide one day. That sure got their attention. With their bags and a Texas plant guide, they headed out. Tabitha was careful to stay away from the work areas, not wanting to run into Blackburn just yet. Their nature walk was going just fine until Billy saw a plant down by the creek. "Hey, look at this one, Miss Vance," Edie called out, already reaching for it. "Wait!" Tabitha rushed over, recognizing the plant right away. "Do not touch that, Billy. That's poison ivy. It will make you itch something awful." The boy challenged her. "How do you know?" "Because I have studied plants," she said. "And I once had a student who did not listen and was miserable for a week." "The boy is right to ask," a deep voice rumbled from behind them. Tabitha turned to find Blackburn on his horse, his face hidden by the shadow of his hat. "Excuse me," she said, a little annoyed. "I said he is right to question you." Blackburn swung down from his horse. "Out here, just taking someone's word for it can get you into a world of trouble. It is better to know for yourself." He knelt, pointing at the plant. "See these leaves, Billy? Leaves of 3, let it be. That is how you remember. And see that they are shiny? That is another warning." He moved over to another plant. "This one looks a lot like it, but the leaves are different. This one is safe." Tabitha was surprised by the sudden lesson. "Well, thank you for the extra information, Mr. Blackburn," she said, trying to sound formal. His sharp blue eyes seemed to look right through her. "You do not know much about Texas plants, do you, Miss Vance?" "I'm learning," she had to admit. "My knowledge is all from books at this point." To her surprise, he didn't make fun of her. He just nodded, like her honesty had earned a little bit of his respect. Book smarts are a place to start. But out here, it is practical knowledge that keeps you safe. He stood up, so tall that Tabitha had to crane her neck to look him in the eye. "If you are going to teach these children about plants, you ought to learn from somebody who really knows them." "Are you offering to teach me, Mr. Blackburn?" She could not hide the surprise in her voice. She saw something in his eyes, maybe amusement or a challenge. "No, Miss Vance, but Mrs. Garcia knows every plant that grows within 50 miles. You should ask her." With that, he was back on his horse and riding away, leaving Tabitha wondering if she should be bad or thankful for his advice. "Mr. Blackburn knows a lot about plants," Emma said, watching him go. "He showed us which berries are good to eat and which ones will make you real sick." "Did he now?" Tabitha murmured, tucking away that new piece of the puzzle. That evening, she went to find Mrs. Garcia. She found her in the kitchen, her skilled hands rolling out dough for the next day's biscuits. "Mr. Blackburn suggested I speak with you about the plants around here," Tabitha said, a little uneasy. "The children and I were collecting samples, and I realize I don't know a thing." Mrs. Garcia looked up, a spark of approval in her dark eyes. "He said that now, did he? Well, well," the older woman chuckled. "Russell Blackburn doesn't just send folks my way. He only sends people he thinks are worth the trouble. You should take that as a high compliment, Miss Vance. So will you help me out? I'd like to know more before I take the children out again." "Of course, child. I've been gathering these plants since I was younger than little Emma. My grandmother was a healer. She taught me everything." Mrs. Garcia wiped flour from her hands. We can go out tomorrow after breakfast. True to her word, Mrs. Garcia took Tabitha on a grand tour of the ranch the next morning. She pointed out what was good to eat, what could be used as medicine, and which ones were throwable. It was a fascinating lesson, and Tabitha filled up her notebook with drawings and descriptions. The children said Mr. Blackburn taught them about plants too, she said as they walked back. Mrs. Garcia nodded. That man knows more than most. He could survive anywhere with just his knife. What do you know about where he comes from? Tabitha asked, trying to keep her voice light. The housekeeper shot her a knowing look. Not much he ain't told me himself, and that's precious little. I know he fought in the war, but not for the cause. He lost his kin when he was just a boy. She paused. Why do you ask? Just professional interest, Tabitha replied a bit too fast. Mr. Montgomery thinks I should work on Mr. Blackburn's manners. Mrs. Garcia laughed right out loud at that. Good luck with that, miss. A lot of folks have tried, and they have all failed. That man is who he is. I don't believe that, Tabitha said firmly. Everyone can change if they have the right reason. And you think you can be that reason? I can certainly try, she said, sounding braver than she felt. You might be the first woman to try and gentle Russell Blackburn that he'd actually listen to. Now, what makes you say that? He watches you, the housekeeper said simply. When you are with the children or just reading out on the porch. He doesn't think I notice, but I do. He's curious about you, Miss Vance, and that man doesn't waste his curiosity on just anybody. Tabitha felt her cheeks flush. I am sure you are mistaken. Oh, I'm sure I'm not, Mrs. Garcia replied with a grin. But time's the only one that will tell, isn't it? That afternoon, using all her new knowledge, Tabitha led the children on another expedition to gather plants. This time, she was full of confidence. She explained what each plant was for, just as Mrs. Garcia had taught her that morning. They were so wrapped up in their collecting, they never heard the riders until they were nearly on top of them. Just then, Tabitha saw Blackburn and some ranch hands riding back from checking the fences. The other fellows just nodded as they passed, but Blackburn pulled his horse up right beside them. He looked at their bags and her notebook and said, Learning about the local plants, I see. Yes, Mrs. Garcia was a great help, Tabitha answered. Thank you for sending me to her. He just tipped his head, then looked at the children. Y'all find anything good? Billy and Emma got all excited and showed him what they'd found, talking a mile a minute. Tabitha was stunned. Blackburn listened to every word, sometimes correcting them gently. He even added a few things Mrs. Garcia had missed. He was nothing like the grumpy man from dinner. You are very good with them, she said once the children had run off to look at a cactus. Blackburn's face immediately shut down, like she'd caught him doing something wrong. They're good kids, he grumbled. Just need a firm hand. Like your horses. She was surprised when he almost smiled. Smarter than horses. More like wolf cubs, I reckon. They're wild, but they'll be loyal if you earn it, he said. And how does one do that? She asked. Be consistent. Be honest. Don't make promises you can't keep. His gaze was sharp and direct. Kids can spot a fake from 50 paces. I am not a fake, Mr. Blackburn, she said softly. No, he said after a long pause. But you are a long way from home, Miss Vance. This is not Boston. I am well aware of that, she replied, thinking how different her life was now. But sometimes a change of scenery can teach you a thing or two. That it can, he said, a flicker of respect in his eyes. You're doing better with them than the others did. Before she could even process that compliment, he spurred his horse and rode off, leaving her staring after him. That night, Blackburn was his usual quiet self at the dinner table. But Tabitha noticed him watching her when he thought she wasn't looking. She remembered Mrs. Garcia's words, he's curious about you, and felt a little thrill. The next 2 weeks settled into a comfortable rhythm of lessons and outdoor learning. Celis Montgomery came back from his trip for a few days, seemed happy with her work, and then left again. While he was there, Blackburn kept his distance, eating with the ranch hands instead of in the main house. They don't get along, Uncle Celis and Mr. Blackburn, Emma told her one afternoon. They were watching the foreman ride out just after Montgomery had come back. They argue something fierce when they think we ain't listening, the little girl whispered. About what? Tabitha asked. Emma just shrugged. Ranch stuff. Uncle wants to sell more land, but Mr. Blackburn says it's a bad idea. Emma told her that Uncle Montgomery wanted them in a San Antonio school, but Mr. Blackburn said they belonged right here. The girl insisted she wanted to stay, saying city girls just made fun of how she talked. That evening, Tabitha cautiously raised the school plans with Montgomery over dinner. His face hardened as he called it the logical next step for their education. "But they are thriving here, sir," Tabitha argued. "A sudden move might disrupt everything." Montgomery's voice turned to ice. "Miss Vance, their education is my decision, not yours. You were hired to prepare them for school, not to question my plans." He then accused her. "Blackburn put you up to this, did he not?" "No," she said honestly, "but if a good man like him agrees, maybe it's worth considering." "Blackburn knows cattle," Montgomery scoffed. "He knows nothing of what a proper family needs." The conversation left Tabitha certain this was about his own ambitions, not the children's happiness. 2 days later, Montgomery left for Austin, and the entire ranch seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. About a week later, Tabitha was on the porch at night, enjoying the vast Texas sky, so different from Boston. She was lost in her thoughts and did not hear Blackburn's quiet approach from the yard. "Mind if I join you?" he asked from the shadows. And startled, she told him, of course not. His idea. "No," she said truthfully. "I came to this opinion on my own. But if Mr. Blackburn sees it the same way, maybe it has some merit." "Russell Blackburn is a fine foreman," Montgomery said, dismissing it. "But he knows nothing about the needs of children from a good family. The sooner Emma and Billy learn to fit into proper society, the better their future will be." That conversation left Tabitha feeling troubled. She could not help but think that Montgomery's plans were less about the children and more about his own goals. But it was not her place to challenge him. For now, she would just give Emma and Billy the best education she knew how. Montgomery headed out for Austin on business just 2 days after that. The whole mood of the ranch lightened up right away. Blackburn was back at his spot at the dinner table, and the children were back to their loud and happy selves. One evening, about a week after Montgomery had gone, Tabitha was sitting on the porch after the children went to bed, enjoying the cool night and the amazing show of stars. That big Texas sky still took her breath away. It was nothing like the small slice of heaven she saw between the buildings in Boston. She was so deep in thought that she did not hear Blackburn come up until he spoke. "Mind if I join you?" Startled, she looked up and found him standing by the porch steps, his face hidden in the evening shadows. "Of course not," she replied. She motioned to the empty chair beside her. He settled his large frame into it, stretching his long legs out. They just sat there in silence, looking up at that star-filled sky. "Little different from what you are used to, I reckon," he said. "Very. In Boston, the buildings hide the view, and the city lights wash out all the stars. It is overwhelming," she admitted. He simply nodded. "First time I saw a sky like this, I was 16. It surely made me feel small." "Where was that?" she asked. "West Texas. I was driving cattle from San Antonio," he replied, falling silent again. Tabitha thought the conversation was over, but then he continued, his voice softer than she had ever heard. "I had not been more than 10 miles from home before that. Thought I knew it all. That sky taught me otherwise." "Is that when you decided to be a rancher?" He gave a short laugh. "No, ma'am. It took a lot more hard lessons to settle on this life. War, wandering, jobs I am not proud of." "You do not want to hear about all that," he said. "Actually, I do," she told him honestly. Blackburn studied her in the dim light. Whatever he saw there satisfied him, because he leaned back and began to talk. He was never a man of many words, but he spoke more openly than he ever had before. He told her about growing up in East Texas as a blacksmith's son. Typhoid took his parents when he was 14, leaving him to make his own way in the world. At 18, he joined the army because it was either that or be forced into service. "I never did believe in the cause," he said flatly, "but I believed in defending my home. That is how I saw things back then. The war had made him hard. It taught him how to survive. After it ended, he drifted west, taking any work he could find. Cowhand, bounty hunter, even a town marshal." "How did you find your way here?" she finally asked. "Montgomery hired me 5 years back to handle some rustlers. I did, so he offered me the foreman job." He shrugged. It seemed a good enough place to stop drifting. "And the children?" she asked softly. He was quiet for so long that she did not think he would answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "Their father was a good man, fought beside me. And when he died, he made me promise I would look out for his family. I never thought I would have to." He sighed a heavy sigh. "When they came here after their mother passed, they were just broken. They did not talk or play. It reminded me too much of myself at that age." "So you helped them heal," she said. "I tried. I taught them how to ride and let them help with the new calves. I showed them this land. I figured if they could connect to it, they might find their way back." His large hands tightened on the chair. "And they did. They are strong, those two." "You care a whole lot for them," she said softly. "Well, somebody's got to," he replied. "Montgomery sees them as a duty, not his kin. He means well, but he doesn't know the first thing about kids. Like that school in San Antonio," she finished. His head whipped around. "He told you that?" "Emma mentioned it, so I asked him." She paused. "I suggested they might need another year of learning right here." "And what was his answer to that?" he asked. "He figured you put me up to it," she admitted. "Said you know nothing about raising proper children." Blackburn just scoffed. "Just like him. Thinks money and a fancy name is all that matters." He leaned in, his voice low and serious. "Those kids need roots, Miss Vance. They need to feel like they belong and won't get sent away. When things get inconvenient, they need to know who they are before the world tries to change them." She was just amazed by the fire in his voice. He understood those children so deeply. This wasn't the hard, unfeeling man she'd expected. This was a man with a whole lot of heart. "I agree with you," she said quietly, "and I'll do my best to help change Mr. Montgomery's mind." Blackburn looked her square in the eye, searching for the truth. He saw she was sincere and gave a single nod. It felt like a promise between them. "Thank you," he said. The silence that followed was different. It was not tense anymore, but easy and comfortable. When Tabitha finally stood up to go to bed for the night, Blackburn stood up too. It was a polite gesture she never would have expected from him. "Good night, Mr. Blackburn," she said at the door. "Russell," he answered. "If we're going to be partners in this, you ought to call me by my name." She was surprised by the offer. "All right, Russell, and you can call me Titha, if you like." He nodded with just a hint of a smile. "Good night then, Titha." The way he said her name in that deep voice stayed with her all the way up the stairs. Something had changed. They both cared for the children, and now they respected each other. It was not friendship, not yet, but it was a start. As she fell asleep, Tabitha realized something surprising. She had not thought about Boston or her old troubles in days. Without even noticing, Texas was starting to feel like home. The next morning was bright and already promising to be a scorcher. Tabitha got up early, wanting to finish the lessons before the afternoon heat set in. She found Billy and Emma at the breakfast table with Mrs. Garcia. "Where is Mr. Blackburn?" she asked. "He rode out 'fore sunup with a few of the hands," Mrs. Garcia answered. "Something about lost cattle on the north pasture. Said he would be late for supper." Tabitha felt a little disappointed, but she pushed the feeling down. After all, their talk did not change who he was. Russell Blackburn was the foreman, all business, not a social friend. The morning's lessons went just fine. With the children focused, Tabitha suggested they move class outside after lunch. They settled on a blanket in the shade of a big oak tree for their history lesson. "Today, we are going to talk about the first folks who lived on this land," she began. "You mean Indians?" Billy asked. "Native Americans," Tabitha gently corrected. "In this part of Texas, the Comanche were the main tribe." Emma added, "Mr. Pine, Blackburn says the Comanche were the best horsemen to ever live." "Better than any cowboy," she said. A voice drawled from behind. He would know. Tabitha turned, startled to see a tall, lean man she had not heard approach. "I do not believe we have met," she said, getting to her feet. "Tom Weaver," the man said with a nod. "I'm a scout for the ranch, just got back." His cold eyes sized her up in a way that just made her skin crawl. "You must be the new governess." She confirmed she was Miss Vance, disliking him on sight. "Are you looking for Mr. Montgomery?" "No, ma'am, I am looking for Blackburn. He is with some men in the north pasture, checking on strays," Tabitha told him. Weaver's mouth twisted into something like a grin. Is that what he told Mrs. Garcia? His tone was full of insinuation. What do you mean by that? Just that I have been all over the North Range, and there is no sign of Blackburn. I'm sure there is a simple reason for it, Tabitha said, feeling deeply unsettled. Perhaps, Weaver said, though he clearly did not believe a word of it. When he shows up, tell him I need a word with him. It is urgent. He tipped his hat in a way that felt like a mockery and sauntered off. I do not like him, Emma said quietly. Mr. Blackburn does not like him either. He even told Uncle Celis not to hire him, but he did anyway. Tabitha stored that interesting piece of information away for later, but after Weaver's visit, she found it very hard to concentrate on the lesson. Russell did not come back for dinner, just as Mrs. Garcia had guessed. He was not back for breakfast the next morning, and Tabitha started to worry. She told herself it was silly. A man like Russell Blackburn could take care of himself. Still, Weaver's sly words echoed in her mind. If Russell was not there, where had he gone? Her worry festered when another day passed with no sign of him or his men. Even Mrs. Garcia seemed uneasy, though she tried to brush it off. Ranch work is just unpredictable, the housekeeper told Tabitha. Could be anything from strays to a busted wagon wheel. But Mr. Weaver saw nothing on the North Range, Tabitha pointed out. Mrs. Garcia's face went dark. I wouldn't put any stock in what that fella says. He has a forked tongue. On the third morning, the sound of horses woke Tabitha before the sun was up. She hurried to the window, relieved to see Russell getting off his horse. But in the dim light, she could tell something was badly wrong. He was moving stiffly. Forgetting all about being proper, she threw on a robe and rushed downstairs. When she reached the yard, Russell was giving short orders to the other men. His voice was tight with pain. Russell, she called, walking toward him slowly. He turned, a flicker of surprise on his face. Miss Vance, you are up mighty early. I heard the horses, she explained, then gasped as she saw him clearly. A terrible bruise was on his face and his shirt was bloody. You are hurt. It is nothing, he dismissed, wincing. Just a little disagreement that got out of hand. With who? She pressed. His eyes met hers, then looked away. It does not matter. It is handled. Clearly not, she retorted, forgetting she was in her nightclothes. She was supposed to be civilizing this man, not arguing with Aunt Emma. You need a doctor. What I need is sleep, he shot back, after I report to Montgomery. Mr. Montgomery is not here, she reminded him as he limped toward the bunkhouse. At least let Mrs. Garcia see to those cuts, Tabitha pleaded, following him. He stopped and faced her. The morning light showed the deep exhaustion in his eyes. Why do you even care, Miss Vance? He asked quietly. The question caught her off guard. Why did she care? Because under all that gruffness, she saw something else. She saw a deep-down decency he tried so hard to hide from the world. Because you are a good man trying to do right by those children, she said finally, and because you are hurt, and it is the decent thing to do. He studied her for a long moment, then sighed. Fine, but not Mrs. Garcia. I am in no mood for her fussing. Then let me help you, she offered quickly. I have some experience with first aid. Russell raised an eyebrow, wincing as the bruise on his face pulled tight. Face. Is that a fact? I was a volunteer at a hospital during the war, she told him. I know how to clean a wound. He thought on it, then nodded. All right, but meet me at the house in 10 minutes. Not out in the open. True to his word, Russell showed up at the back door just as he said he would. He had taken off his dusty coat and hat, but he still looked like he had been through a grinder. Tabitha had everything she needed ready and waiting for him. She took him to a small sitting room. Sit down, she said, pointing to a chair. Now tell me where you are hurt. Mostly my ribs, he said, lowering himself down easy. And my face took a few hits, as you can plainly see. What in the world happened? She asked, wetting a cloth. As she cleaned the cut on his cheek, he finally decided to talk. We have had some trouble with rustlers up on the northern line. They are small time, but they do not quit. Montgomery wanted to hire more guns. I thought that was just asking for a range war, so I went to try a different way. And what way was that? Tabitha asked, gently cleaning the dried blood from his face. Up close, he looked even worse. I went to talk to the man I reckon is behind it all. Russell winced. Name's Jasper Hall. He runs a little place just north of here. Lost a good bit of land to Montgomery in a bad deal. I take it the talk did not go over so well? A small smile almost touched his lips. You could say that, not exactly. Hall was not interested in talking reason. He just said he was taking back what was his. So how did you end up looking like this? Hall had some friends. They jumped us as we left. We took care of business, but not before they got some good licks in. That is the short of it anyway. Tabitha finished with his face. All right now, I need to see about those ribs, she said, her voice all business. You will have to take off your shirt. Russell gave her a long look, then slowly started on the buttons. When the shirt came off, Tabitha could not help but gasp. His whole side was a terrible map of purple and black bruises. That bad, huh? He asked, watching her face. It just looks painful, she said, getting a hold of herself. I do not think anything is broken, though. But you have to be more careful. These men could have killed you. It would not be the first time somebody tried, he said with a grim little smile, and it will not be the last. Tabitha started rubbing a healing salve on his ribs. She tried to be gentle, but the muscles were tight with pain. He sat perfectly still, breathing slow and steady. You did not tell Montgomery you were going, did you? She asked. No, he said. He would have forbidden it. He wanted a big show of force instead. But is that so wrong? If these men are stealing your cattle, it is a lot more complicated than that, Russell cut in. Hollis believes Montgomery got his land through some shady dealings. Starting a fight would just lead to trouble. So you walked in there lone, Tabitha noted, wrapping a bandage around his ribs. That was either brave or real foolish. A little of both, I reckon, he said. But I know how fights over cattle end. Nobody wins. She tied the knot. There, that should help with the hurting. You need to rest for a few days. Russell just chuckled as he put his shirt on. Not likely, this ranch won't run itself. Can't the other fellas manage for a day? They could, he said, but a foreman has to be seen working. Especially after a mess like this, it shows strength. Tabitha frowned. That's not strength. That's just being plain stubborn. Maybe so, Russell admitted, standing up slowly. But that's the way it is out here. He looked down at her. Thank you for this, Tatha. I mean it. Hearing her name said so kindly gave her a warm feeling inside. You're welcome, Russell. They just looked at each other. Then Russell cleared his throat and headed for the door. I should get to it. The men are waiting on me. At least eat some breakfast, Tabitha insisted. You've been gone for 3 days. He thought a moment, then nodded. All right, I could eat. As they walked to the kitchen, she felt how much things had changed between them. In those quiet moments, Russell Blackburn became a different man. To her, he was no longer just the meanest cowboy in Texas. He was a good man with a gentle heart hidden underneath. That thought was both thrilling and scary. Word of the showdown with Jasper Holly spread through the ranch like a prairie fire. By lunchtime, Tabitha had heard the story from the kids, Mrs. Garcia, and even Charlie. He stopped by the schoolhouse, pretending to fix a window just so he could share the gossip. They say Mr. Blackburn faced down 6 armed men with nothing but his fists, Charlie said. Dropped 2 of them cold and sent the others running for their lives. I'm sure the story has grown a bit, Tabitha replied, picturing Russell's bruises. Maybe, Charlie said, but he stopped the rustling without firing a single shot. Old man Holly agreed his men will leave our cattle alone now. In return, Mr. Blackburn will talk to Montgomery about Holly's water rights. This was brand new information to Tabitha. He made a deal? Russell didn't tell me that. Charlie grinned. Yep, that's Mr. Blackburn for you. Does the hard work without a fuss. The children had so many questions, it was hard to teach a proper lesson. So Tabitha turned the incident into a talk about solving problems. Mr. Blackburn could have gone in there angry, she explained to them. But instead, he chose to listen first. That is often the wisest path to take. But he still got hurt, Billy pointed out to her. Yes, and that is an important lesson. Sometimes doing right comes with a price. Is that why you came all the way to Texas? Emma asked out of the blue. Because it was the right thing, even though leaving Boston was hard. Tabitha was caught off guard by the question. In a way, she admitted, sometimes you have to leave a familiar place to find where you truly belong. And do you think you belong here? Emma pressed on. Tabitha thought about the big Texas sky, Mrs. Garcia's warmth, and Russell. I am beginning to think I might, she said with a soft smile. That evening, Russell did not join them for supper. He was with the men. Tabitha tried not to let her disappointment show. She knew his responsibilities around the ranch always came first. After she tucked the children into bed, she stepped out onto the porch. The cool night air and the bright stars seemed to call to her. The whole ranch was quiet, settling down after the excitement. In the distance, a lone coyote howled into the vast darkness. The creak of a floorboard let her know she was not alone. She turned to see Russell watching her. I did not mean to startle you, he said. You did not, she promised, gesturing to the empty chair right beside her own. He moved over and lowered himself carefully, still looking a little sore. How are those ribs feeling now? She asked him in a quiet voice. Much better thanks to your doctoring. That salve Mrs. Garcia gave you worked wonders. They sat together in a comfortable silence, just listening to the night. I heard you came to an understanding with Mr. Holly, she finally said. Russell glanced at her, then looked back at the star-filled sky. Holly had a fair point. He bought Holly's land for pennies on the dollar when times were tough. Then he dammed the creek, the one that watered all of Holly's pasture. It was not illegal, but it sure was not right. You reckon Montgomery will agree? He will if he wants this cattle thieving to end for good. Russell's voice was like steel. I made it clear to Holly that any more of his boys stealing cattle would have serious consequences. But I also promised I would fight for his water rights. It is the only fair way this gets settled for everyone. That is mighty diplomatic, considering your reputation, Tabitha pointed out. He glanced over at her, his bruised face showing a hint of a smile in his eyes. You mean for the meanest man in Texas? She felt her cheeks get warm. I did not say that. You did not have to. That is what Montgomery tells anyone who will listen. He shrugged, wincing a little. A reputation like that can be useful. It makes folks think twice. But it is not all of me. It is not who you really are, Tabitha said with certainty. Russell was quiet for a long moment. He looked back up at the stars. There is some truth to it, he finally said. I have done things I am not proud of. I have been harder on people than I needed to be. But that is not the whole story. Then what is the whole truth? She asked softly. He looked right at her, his face a shadow. Why do you need to know, Titha? Are you still on a mission to tame me? The question stung because it was true. Maybe at first, she admitted, but now I just want to understand you. Because her voice trailed off, unsure how to say what she felt for this complicated man. Because I care about you, the children, and this place. Russell searched her face for a lie. He found only honesty. The whole truth, he said slowly, is that I learned something early on. This world is a hard place. It favors the strong and it breaks the weak. I chose to be strong, no matter the cost. But being strong without a reason is just being mean. These last few years, I have been trying to find the right balance. To be tough enough to survive, but not lose sight of what matters. And what matters to you? Tabitha asked, drawn in by his honesty. Justice, loyalty, keeping my word. He paused for a moment. And protecting those who need it, like Emma and Billy. He nodded. They deserve a better life than to being pawns in Montgomery's games. You truly care for them, do not you? Tabitha said quietly. They are the only family I have got, Russell admitted. Watching them grow, seeing them heal, it has given me a reason for being. A purpose I did not even know I was looking for. The simple truth in his voice touched her heart. This was the real Russell Blackburn, not the hard-nosed foreman everyone was afraid of. He was a man who found his purpose in caring for two little orphans. They love you too, she said quietly. Anyone can see those kids need a stable home, he said, his voice turning rough. A place where they're valued. I'm not about to let Montgomery send them away. We will not let that happen, Tabitha promised, placing her hand on his. Russell looked down, then turned his hand over, his calloused grip swallowing hers completely. Thank you, he said, his voice low and sincere. They just sat there for a moment, and Tabitha felt a warmth spread right through her. His touch was so gentle, even though she knew how strong his hands were. He finally let go and stood up. It is getting late, he said, all gruff again. You ought to get some rest. Tabitha stood too, feeling a little shy all of a sudden. Yes, I suppose I should. He walked her to the door and paused, his look making her heart beat a little faster. "Good night, Tabitha," he said, his deep voice like a soft rumble. "Good night, Russell," she whispered back, her heart all aflutter. As she walked upstairs, she knew it for certain. She was falling for the so-called meanest cowboy in Texas. The feeling was thrilling but also terrifying. He was a hard man to read. He kept his feelings locked up tight, and she was still just the school teacher from Boston. But for the first time, she hoped her stay on the ranch might be for good. Maybe she could find a home here, right alongside that complicated man. The next morning, Sellers Montgomery rode in, a full week ahead of time. Tabitha saw him from the schoolroom window, his face like a thundercloud. He was barking orders at a stable boy as he jumped off his horse. "Is Uncle Sellers angry?" Emma asked, peeking from behind her. "I am not sure, honey," Tabitha said, though he sure looked it. She tried to continue the lesson, but it was no use. Concentration was gone. Even Billy kept glancing nervously toward the door, jumpy as a rabbit. After a good 30 minutes, Tabitha gave up on the books for the morning. "Why do we not go outside?" she suggested brightly. "I think our butterflies are ready to come out." The children eagerly agreed, just happy to escape the tension in the house. After a spell, Tabitha figured the books had done enough for one morning. "Why don't we head outside for a bit?" she suggested, closing the reader. "I reckon those butterfly cocoons we've been watching are about ready to open up." The children jumped at the chance, glad to be free of the stuffy room, the heavy mood in the house. As they got their things, Tabitha heard loud voices coming from Montgomery's study. She could not make out the words, but the anger was plain as day, and one voice was Russell's. "They're fighting again," Emma whispered, looking mighty worried. "That is nothing for you to fret about," Tabitha told her, even though she felt a knot in her own stomach. "Grown-ups just do that sometimes. Now let's go find us some butterflies." They spent the next hour in the garden, and sure enough, they saw 2 monarch butterflies come out of their cocoons. It was a sight that helped the children forget the tension inside for a little while. Tabitha was telling them about the butterfly's long journey when she saw Russell marching across the yard, his face like a thundercloud. "Miss Vance," he called, walking over to them. "Can I have a word?" "Of course," she said, her heart sinking at his expression. "Children, y'all keep watching. I will be right back." She stepped a few feet away with Russell, keeping an eye on the kids but out of earshot. "What is wrong?" she asked softly. "Montgomery's back, as I'm sure you noticed," Russell said, looking grim. "He got a letter from that school in San Antonio. They agreed to take Emma and Billy at the start of next month." "Next month?" Tabitha cried out. "But that is less than 4 weeks away. I thought he was going to wait until next year." "He was," Russell confirmed, "until we started speaking up for the children. Now he is dead set on sending them away as soon as he can. Says they are getting too attached to the wrong folks." "Meaning you," Tabitha said, and it all started to make sense. "And you too," Russell added, looking right at her. "He does not care for you taking my side on this." A cold pit of dread formed in her stomach. "Is he letting me go?" "Not yet," Russell said, "but he made it perfectly clear your job here depends on you getting on board with his plans." "I see," she said quietly, glancing back at Emma and Billy, who were gently setting the new butterflies free. The idea of them being shipped off to some strict school, away from everyone they loved, just about broke her heart. "What can we do?" Russell's face softened a bit as he looked at her. You are willing to risk your job for this?" "Of course I am," Tabitha answered without a second thought. "Those children belong here with folks who truly care about them. I will not be a part of taking that away." He looked at her with surprise and real admiration. "Well, thank you," he said, plain and simple. Then his face got real thoughtful. "There might be a way. You see, Montgomery is not their legal guardian. He is not." Well, that was news to Tabitha, but I thought he was looking after them. The legal paperwork was never finished after their mama died. He was supposed to file with the court down in San Antonio, but he just kept putting it off. Russell lowered his voice. "Their fathers will name me as their guardian if both parents passed, with Montgomery as a backup if I was not around." Well, Montgomery conveniently left that part out when he brought the children here. "So legally, your claim is stronger. If I can prove what is in the will?" "Yes. The problem is Montgomery has the document, and he is not about to hand it over. Tabitha's mind raced. Surely there was a copy somewhere. Maybe with the lawyer in San Antonio, James Forrester, Russell confirmed. But I can't leave the ranch right now. Not with all this trouble still brewing. I could go, Tabitha offered, almost without thinking. I can take the stagecoach tomorrow, talk to Mr. Forrester, and be back in 3 days. Russell stared at her. He was clearly surprised by her offer. I would do it, she said with determination, for the children. She paused, then she added, much softer, and for you. Their eyes locked, and something real passed between them. It was a feeling neither of them had been brave enough to name. After a long moment, Russell nodded. All right, but you are not going alone. That is a hard journey, and San Antonio is no place for a woman by herself. He thought for a second. Charlie can go with you. He is young but steady, and Montgomery will not miss him like he would me. What should we tell Mr. Montgomery about me leaving so suddenly? Tabitha asked. We will tell him part of the truth, Russell replied, that you need to buy some more books for the children's schooling. He will approve of anything that makes them look good for that fancy school. And when you get back with a copy of that will, Russell's expression grew hard. Then we will confront him with a lawyer if need be. Montgomery cares more about his good name than anything. He will not risk a public fight that he might lose. The plan felt dangerous, but Tabitha saw no other way. Very well, I will tell Mrs. Garcia to help me prepare. As she turned to leave, Russell gently caught her arm. Tabitha, he said, his voice low. Thank you. I know this is a lot to ask. It is the right thing to do, she answered. Then, feeling a bit brave, she added, besides, I find I have a few reasons for wanting to stay right here at the ranch. A slow smile spread across Russell's face, lighting up his eyes despite his bruises. Is that a fact? He asked. It is, she confirmed, feeling her cheeks grow warm. Well then, he said, letting go of her arm but not her gaze, I suppose we both have a good reason to see this through. With that little mystery hanging in the air, he nodded once. Then he strode off toward the stables, leaving Tabitha to wonder exactly what he meant by that. She hoped it meant what she thought it did. That evening, she told Montgomery about her trip to San Antonio. To her surprise, he was not just agreeable, he was pleased. An excellent idea, Miss Vance, he said, stroking his mustache. The children must be well prepared. They have to be ready for St. Mary's Academy. While you are there, you should pay a visit to Headmaster Phillips. I have already sent a letter ahead telling him you are preparing Emma and Billy. Of course, Tabitha agreed, she said, though her stomach was doing flip-flops. I would be happy to meet with him. Good, that's good. Montgomery pulled a small, clinking pouch from his desk. This here is for your expenses, with a little something extra for you. San Antonio has some fine shops for a lady. That's mighty generous, Mr. Montgomery, Tabitha said, the guilt stinging as she took the money. Not at all. You've handled the children well, despite some local influences. His tone turned chilly. I expect you now understand my worry about them getting too fond of this ranch and its people. I understand where you're coming from, she answered carefully. But I still believe the children need some stability. Montgomery just waved a hand. Oh, children get over things. Emma and Billy will be just fine at St. Mary's. The main thing is setting them up for their future. I'm counting on your help to make this a smooth change, Miss Vance. Their time here was only ever for a little while. I suppose my time was too, Tabitha couldn't help but ask. Not unless you want it to be, Montgomery said, which surprised her. There might be a place for you in San Antonio. The children will need a familiar face while they get settled. This was a turn she did not see coming. A month back, Tabitha might have considered it. But now, leaving Texas for some city job sounded just awful. That is very kind, she said, not giving him a real answer. I will surely think on it. You do that, Montgomery said, already done with the conversation. The stage leaves at 8 tomorrow morning. Charlie's going with you, just as Blackburn figured. A smart move. So he knew about her arrangement with Charlie. It made Tabitha wonder what else he was hiding. The trip to San Antonio was a long, bumpy ride. The stagecoach rocked back and forth on the rough roads. Under that big, hot Texas sun, Charlie was a true gentleman, making sure she always had water. He kept a friendly conversation going the whole way. They finally got to the city late on the second day. They got a room in a simple hotel right near the town square. San Antonio was a whole lot bigger than Tabitha ever imagined, with sturdy stone buildings and streets just full of people. You could see and hear all kinds of folks, with American, Mexican, and German ways all mixed together. "We need to find Mr. Forrester's office first thing," Tabitha told Charlie over a simple dinner. "The quicker we get the papers we need, the quicker we can head back to the ranch." Charlie nodded, but he looked a little let down. "I thought you might want to see some of the sights. We could see a little of the city. San Antonio has the Alamo and all that history." Tabitha smiled, touched by his excitement. "All right, but the job comes first." The next morning, they headed to the law offices of Forrester and Wells in a fine brick building. On a main street in San Antonio, Tabitha wore her best suit, hoping to make a good impression. James Forrester was a distinguished gentleman, looked to be in his 60s, with silver hair. He had sharp eyes that saw everything. He listened carefully as Tabitha told him her story. She spoke about her job at the Montgomery Ranch and her worry for the children. "We think the will names Mr. Blackburn as guardian, but Mr. Montgomery has it and won't listen." Mr. Forrester looked at her for a long moment. "Miss Vance, I understand your concern, but I can't just show a client's will to anyone. That would be against my professional duty." Tabitha's hopes fell. "I know, but..." Then Mr. Forrester spoke again. "Now what I can do is confirm something you already know. If you were to ask me if Captain Wallace named Russell Blackburn as the guardian, well, I could give you a straight answer to that." Hope sparked in her eyes. "Did Captain Wallace name Russell Blackburn as the children's guardian?" she asked. "Yes, he did," the lawyer said. "Celia Montgomery was named as a backup, only if Mr. Blackburn couldn't do the job." "Can Mr. Blackburn get a copy of that will?" Charlie asked. "The official one is with Mr. Montgomery," Mr. Forrester said, "but I have a copy right here in my files. I can't just give it to you, you understand. That would require a legal order. But if Mr. Blackburn takes this to court, asking for guardianship, I would be required to bring my copy as evidence." Tabitha felt a wave of relief. "So if Russell comes here and files with the court, he has a real solid chance?" Mr. Forrester nodded. "Captain Wallace was very clear. He and Mr. Blackburn were old friends from the war. They had a powerful bond of trust. The captain wanted Mr. Blackburn to raise those children. He wanted them raised with honor, close to the land." "That's exactly what Russell wants for them," Tabitha said. "He cares a great deal for Mignon and Billy. He's teaching them about ranch life. But he also makes sure they get their schooling. He just doesn't think they should be sent away while they are still grieving." Mr. Forrester watched her with his sharp gaze. "You seem to have a lot of heart in this, Miss Vance. Why is that?" He asked why she cared so much, more than just a regular governess would. Tabitha didn't know how to answer. It was a complicated feeling. She loved the children, and she was starting to have strong feelings for Russell too. Motivation. "Because it is the right thing to do," she said. "Emma and Billy deserve a home where they are truly loved. They need to be loved for who they are, and Mr. Blackburn, for all his tough ways, loves those children as if they were his own flesh and blood." Forrester nodded his head. "I believe you. And I reckon Captain Wallace would approve." He reached for a piece of paper. "I cannot give you a copy of the will, but I can write a letter confirming its existence. Mr. Blackburn can use this to start legal proceedings if it comes to that." "Thank you," Tabitha said with all her heart. "This will make all the difference." As they left the office, Charlie grinned at her. "Well, that went better than expected. Should we see a little bit of San Antonio before heading back?" Tabitha was tempted. The long journey had worn her out, and she dreaded getting right back on another stagecoach. Besides, she had promised to pick up some school supplies to keep up their story. "Just for a few hours," she agreed. "We can visit some bookshops for the supplies. Maybe see the Alamo, and then catch the afternoon stage home." They spent a pleasant few hours exploring the city. Charlie was a fine guide, having been there before. They bought books, paper, and other school materials, and saw the historic Alamo. They even had time for a nice sit-down lunch before going to the stagecoach station. The trip back home felt even longer. Tabitha's mind was racing with plans and worries. How would Montgomery react to the truth? Would he fight Russell for guardianship? And what would this all mean for her job? By the time they reached Montgomery Ranch, Tabitha was worn out but more determined than ever. Charlie helped her down from the stage. "Should I take these parcels to the house for you, Miss Vance?" he asked, nodding at the supplies. "Yes, please," she replied. "And Charlie, thank you. I could not have done this without you." He ducked his head, a little embarrassed. "Just doing what Mr. Blackburn asked, ma'am. He is a good man." "Yes," Tabitha agreed softly. "I believe he is." As Charlie headed toward the house, Tabitha made her way to the stables, guessing Russell would be there. She found him in the tack room, carefully mending a bridle like he always did. He looked up the moment she entered. "You are back. How did things go?" Tabitha closed the door behind her for privacy. "We were successful. Mr. Forrester confirmed everything. Captain Wallace named you as guardian for the children. He could not give us a copy of the will, but he did give us this letter confirming it." She took the letter from her bag and handed it to him. "He said you can use this to petition the court if need be." Russell took the letter, his eyes reading it slowly. His face was unreadable. But when he looked up, his eyes had a fire that took her breath. "Well now, this changes things," he said quietly. "This gives me a real legal way to fight for them." "Mr. Forrester seemed to think you had a very strong case," Tabitha confirmed. "He said Captain Wallace was mighty clear about his wishes." Russell carefully folded the letter and put it in his pocket. Thomas knew what he wanted for his kids. A life on the land with honest work. He looked right at her. Not some fancy school where they'd learn to be ashamed of their roots. "What's your next move?" she asked. "Not Montgomery. Not yet." Russell thought for a second. "First, I'm going to see Judge Wilson. He's a fair man. If the judge sides with me, Montgomery will have a much harder fight on his hands." "What about the children?" Russell looked off. "We can't tell them the details yet. But we should prepare them that things might change and that they'll be safe with us." Tabitha nodded, relieved. "That sounds wise. They've been on edge. They can feel the tension since Montgomery came back." Russell studied her face. "You look worn out," he said, his voice softening. "You need to get some rest." "I'm fine," she said, though she was bone-tired. "There's just too much to be done." "It can wait till morning," Russell insisted. "You've done more than enough for one day." "Bringing this letter back, I won't ever forget it." His intense voice made her heart flutter. "I did it for the children," she said softly. "And for you." He stepped closer. She could feel the warmth coming off him. Wait, he whispered. "Why risk so much? Why would you do all this for me? Why?" She held his gaze, finding her courage. "Because I care about you, Russell. A whole lot more than I probably should." He stood still as a statue, his blue eyes searching hers. Then he gently raised a hand. His calloused palm felt warm against her skin. "Tabitha," he said like a prayer, "you deserve better than a rough, scarred-up man like me." "I'll be the judge of that," she said. She leaned into his touch. "And I choose you, Russell Blackburn." A rare, true smile finally spread across his face. "Well then, you're either brave or a fool." "Maybe I'm a little of both," she replied, smiling right back at him. She thought he was about to kiss her, but he slowly lowered his hand. "Not here," he said with regret. "Not like this. You deserve better than some stolen moment in a barn." Tabitha understood. For all his rough reputation, Russell was an honorable man. He was going to do this the right way. Her with anything but pure respect. "I should go to the house," she said, though it was the last thing she wanted. "Montgomery will be expecting a report." Russell nodded. "Just be careful what you say. Don't give him any reason to suspect us." "I won't," she promised. "What about you? When will you see Judge Wilson?" "Tomorrow. The sooner we start this, the better. Montgomery's already making plans for the children to leave. We have to act before he can send them away." And with that, she headed for the main house. Russell went back to his work, but something real had changed between them. It was a shared promise to fight for the family they both loved. As Tabitha neared the house, she saw Montgomery on the porch. His eyes narrowed. She wondered how long he had been standing there, watching her come from the stables. Did he suspect what she was really doing? She took a deep breath and straightened her shoulders. She climbed the steps, ready to play her part just a little while longer. Soon, the truth would be out. When it was, she would stand right beside Russell, no matter the consequences. Montgomery was in the parlor, holding a glass of whiskey. He had a calculating look on his face. He motioned for her to sit down. "Welcome back, Miss Vance," he said, his voice deceptively sweet. "I trust your trip was a success." "Very much so," Tabitha replied. She kept her voice perfectly calm. "I found some excellent books, good paper and pencils, and maps of Texas and the United States. Charlie is bringing it all in." "Splendid," Montgomery said, but his eyes were cold as ice. "And did you see Headmaster Phillips?" Tabitha was ready for his question. "I did, but he was at a conference in Austin." His secretary was very helpful, though. She gave me all the information I needed. Montgomery nodded slowly, swirling the amber liquid. "A pity you missed him. He is a fine educator. The children will surely benefit." He paused, then added casually, "I saw you coming from the stables." So he had been watching her. Tabitha fought to stay calm. "I was just thanking Charlie for his help on the journey," she said. "He was a great help." "Charlie mentioned you made another stop at a law office." Montgomery's gaze got sharper. "Any particular reason for that?" Tabitha's heart pounded. He must have questioned Charlie the moment they returned. She kept her face a perfect mask. "Yes, actually, I was asking about getting my teaching credentials recognized here in Texas. If I'm going to keep teaching, I figured I should understand the legal side of things." Well, that was a story that made sense, and Montgomery couldn't rightly prove it was a lie. He stared at her a good long while, trying to see if she was fibbing. "A sensible plan," he finally said, though he didn't sound too convinced. "Even if your job here isn't permanent. A person should always plan for what's next, Mr. Montgomery," Tabitha said, calm as could be. He gave her a tight little smile. "I suppose so." He put down his glass and stood up. "Well, I will let you get your rest. We can talk about the school and materials tomorrow. The children will sure be happy to see you. They've been down in the dumps since you left." "I've missed them too," Tabitha said, and she meant it. "Good night, Mr. Montgomery." She hurried to her room, feeling relieved. She knew he was suspicious, but he didn't have any proof. For now, that was all that mattered. First thing the next morning, Russell rode into town to have a word with Judge Wilson. Tabitha kept the children busy with their lessons, but her thoughts were far away, wondering how that meeting was going. She found out just after noon. The sound of horses brought her and the children right to the schoolroom window. Russell was back, and with him was an older fella in a black coat. Tabitha figured that must be Judge Wilson. A younger man rode behind them, carrying a leather case full of papers. "Who are those men with Mr. Blackburn?" Emma asked, her nose pressed against the window. "I'm not sure, honey," Tabitha said. "Let's just get back to our lesson, all right?" But it was no use. Nobody could focus. Even Tabitha was listening for noises from downstairs. Before long, she heard them. Montgomery's voice was loud and angry, answered by the steady voices of Russell and another man, who had to be Judge Wilson. "Miss Vance," Mrs. Garcia called from the doorway, looking worried. "You're needed in the study. The children should stay right here." "What's wrong?" Billy asked as Tabitha stood up. "Is Uncle Cecil angry again?" "Everything is going to be just fine," she told him, hoping she was right. "Y'all keep reading until I get back." The air in Montgomery's study was so thick with tension you could feel it. Montgomery was behind his desk, his face red with fury. Russell stood across from him, looking calm but ready for anything. Between them sat Judge Wilson, a man with gray hair who had a quiet strength about him. The young man with the case sat nearby with a pen and paper. He was a court clerk, she realized, writing everything down. "Ah, Miss Vance," Montgomery snapped as she walked in. "How nice of you to join us. Maybe you can tell us about your part in this little trick." Before she could say a word, Judge Wilson held up a hand. "Let's keep a civil tongue, Mr. Montgomery. Miss Vance, please have a seat." The meeting was to decide the guardianship of Emma and William Wallace. Tabitha took a seat, and Russell gave her a comforting nod. The judge began. "Captain Wallace's will is perfectly clear. He named Russell Blackburn as guardian. Mr. Montgomery was listed only as the alternate should Mr. Blackburn be unable to serve." "A will that was never properly filed," Montgomery snapped. "That was just an oversight, and we are correcting it now," the judge replied calmly. "The will's validity is not in question here, Mr. Montgomery." A certified copy confirms the captain was of sound mind when he wrote his wishes. This is absurd, Montgomery fumed. Blackburn is just a ranch foreman, not a suitable guardian. He has no education, no social standing. Russell's voice cut in, quiet but firm. And no financial interest in the children's inheritance. Is that what is bothering you? Are you worried you will lose control of Thomas's land and investments? Montgomery's face turned beet red. How dare you imply such a thing? It is not an implication, Russell said. It is the truth. You use their inheritance to grow your own business. You thought no one would challenge you, but Thomas knew exactly what kind of man you are. Tabitha spoke up, hoping to ease the tension. Judge, we should focus on what is best for Emma and Billy. They have been through a terrible loss, and what they need now is stability and love. The judge nodded. Well said, Miss Vance. That is the court's main concern. He turned to Montgomery. I understand you plan to send them away to a boarding school. St. Mary's Academy is one of the best schools in Texas, Montgomery replied stiffly. They would have advantages there that they can't possibly get on a ranch. And yet, by all accounts, they seem to be thriving right here, Judge Wilson observed. Miss Vance, as their governess, what is your opinion of the children's well-being? Tabitha took a deep breath. Emma and Billy are bright, curious children, and they are learning so much. They do well with their books, but they are also learning about ranching and how to be self-reliant. Most importantly, sir, they are happy here. They feel safe. They have formed strong bonds with the ranch and its people, especially Mr. Blackburn. And you believe these bonds are good for them, the judge asked? Absolutely. Absolutely, Tabitha said firmly. After losing their parents, they need an adult they can truly trust. Mr. Blackburn gives them that. He may not be book smart, but he teaches them values no school ever could provide. Things like honesty and compassion. Montgomery just scoffed at that. Blackburn is no gentleman. The man is known for his rough ways and his cussing. And you think that is a good influence for children? Mr. Blackburn is what those children need, Tabitha shot back, her voice shaking just a little. A man who will always put them first. He understands their sorrow because he has felt it too. He sees their potential and helps it grow. He does not try to change who they are. She looked right at Montgomery and said, he loves them. He loves them for who they are right now, Mr. Montgomery, not for their name or their inheritance. The room went dead silent. Russell was looking at her in a way that made her heart skip. It was admiration and gratitude and something much, much deeper. Judge Wilson cleared his throat. That was well said, Miss Vance. Your opinion, working so close with the children, it matters a great deal. He told the clerk to write all that down. This is an outrage, Montgomery sputtered. The governess is clearly on his side. They have been plotting this whole thing behind my back. That is enough, Montgomery, Russell said in a low voice. This is not about us. It is about what their father wanted. The judge nodded. Indeed, after hearing everything, I am going to honor Captain Wallace's wishes. Blackburn is providing these children with proper care, with Miss Vance's help. He stared hard at Montgomery. Unless you can bring me real proof that he is unfit, I will be granting his petition. All the fight seemed to drain right out of Montgomery. His anger turned to cold calculation. And the financial arrangements? The children's inheritance will be managed for their benefit, and the court will oversee it. Judge Wilson replied, Captain Wallace set up a trust. You and Mr. Blackburn are co-trustees, and that arrangement is going to stand. This seemed to satisfy Montgomery some. I see. And where will the children live? This is my ranch, after all. I bought land, Russell said. The words stunned both Montgomery and Tabitha. The old Kendall place right next to your north pasture. 500 acres. It has got a solid house. The sale is final next week. When did you do that? Tabitha asked, amazed. I have been saving for years, Russell explained, a hint of pride in his voice. I was going to tell you when it was official. Judge Wilson nodded, pleased. Well, that settles the matter of where they will live. The children will be with Mr. Blackburn on his new property. He then turned to Tabitha. Miss Vance, are you willing to continue on as their governess? Pure joy washed over her. Yes, Your Honor, I would be most willing. Excellent. The judge looked at Montgomery. Unless there are any more objections, together, but kept their peace. The guardianship will be made official tomorrow. Mr. Blackburn, I'll need you at my office at 10 to sign the papers. With that, the meeting was done. Montgomery went quiet as a stone, refusing to even look at Russell or Tabitha. As Judge Wilson and his clerk left, Russell saw them out. That left Tabitha alone with Montgomery. After a long silence, he finally looked up. His face was cold as ice. Well, Miss Vance, you're full of surprises. I took you for an ambitious woman. Oh, I am, she said calmly. But my ambitions have changed since coming to Texas. He gave a cold smile. Clearly, I won't stop you, but you're picking a hard road. That Russell Blackburn might seem like a hero to you right now. But a man's true nature doesn't change. That darkness in him doesn't just disappear. A woman's love won't fix that. Tabitha just looked him straight in the eye. I'm not trying to change him, Mr. Montgomery. I care for him just the way he is. Maybe you ought to try that sometime, accepting folks for who they truly are. His face hardened. You will live to regret this, Miss Vance. You mark my words. I don't reckon I will, she said, sure of herself. Now I need to get back to the children. She left him standing there, all alone with his money and his big plans, and walking up those stairs, all she felt was relief. A new life was starting to take shape. It was a future she never could have imagined when she first got here. Not the life she planned, but the one her heart had chosen. Russell was waiting for her. He stood by the window and without a word took her hand, leading her to a quiet spot. In a small alcove where they could be alone, he said, "You were really something else in there." His voice was thick with feeling, standing up to him, defending me. I don't know how to thank you. No thanks needed, she said softly. I just told the truth. It was more than that. And you know it. His guarded eyes were open, showing a part of him she'd never seen before. You have seen my temper, my pride, the very worst parts of me. And you still believe in me. That's a gift I never expected, especially from a lady from Boston. She smiled at that. I am not so refined, Russell. And Boston feels a world away now. Do you miss it? He asked her. Sometimes, she said. I do miss a few things. Like libraries and concerts, but I do not miss the person I used to be there. I was not whole, and I did not know it until I came here. His rough hand gently touched her face. Being here with you and the children, she said, I feel like I've found a missing piece of my own heart. His tough, weathered face just seemed to melt. The sight made her heart ache with sweetness. Tabitha Vance, he said softly, I never reckoned I'd find a woman like you in this life, looking twice at a man like me. Then you sold us both short, she replied, placing her hand right over his. They stood there for a moment, a powerful feeling growing between them. Then, as gentle as could be, Russell leaned down and brushed his lips against hers. Tabitha rose up on her toes, her hand on his neck, and kissed him back with everything she felt. All the feelings from the past few weeks poured into that one perfect moment. When they parted, it felt like a brand new beginning for them both. He rested his forehead against hers. I should have done that a long, long time ago. "Oh, well, better late than never," she teased. He let out a low chuckle. We need to go tell the children. They deserve to know they have a permanent home. Oh, yes, she agreed, her heart soaring. Hand in hand, they went to share the good news. The next few weeks flew by in a happy whirlwind of getting things done. Russell officially became Emma and Billy's legal guardian, signed and sealed by the judge. Montgomery wasn't too pleased, but he kept his distance and stayed busy with his own affairs. The purchase of the Kendall property was done, and Russell started fixing it up right away. The house was solid as a rock, but it surely needed a lot of work. The ranch hands, who had all grown fond of the children, pitched in to help on their own time. Tabitha kept up with the children's schooling and helped plan the big move. She was surprised by how much she loved making a real home for them all. The children were just over the moon about the whole thing. Knowing they were staying for good with Russell and Tabitha brought them so much peace. You could see the pure joy and security shining in their little faces. They helped with every little thing, even deciding where the vegetable patch should go. Are you going to live with us at the new house, Miss Vance? Emma asked one afternoon. Tabitha paused, not quite sure what to say. She and Russell had not figured out that particular detail just yet. Well, I will certainly still be your teacher, she answered a careful way, but we are still working it all out. That's mighty keen thinking for a little girl, but you love Mr. Blackburn and he loves you. We can all see it. Tabitha's cheeks felt warm. Grown-up relationships are complicated, Emma. Not really, the girl said simply. If you love somebody and they love you back, you ought to be together. That's what my mama always told me. Tabitha smiled. Your mama was a very wise woman. But there are proper ways to handle these things, especially with children around. Emma just rolled her eyes. Grown-ups always make things harder than they have to be. Tabitha couldn't help but laugh out loud at that. You might be right about that. Now, which books do you want to bring to our new house? That evening, she saw Russell on the porch, looking over building plans by the light of a lantern. He looked up, and his whole face softened, a look he only ever had for her. The children are asleep, she said, sitting down. They were so excited about the move, they could barely settle. I can't blame them, Russell replied. It's a big change, but a good one. The best, Tabitha said. They are so happy to be staying with you. Although Emma did ask me a very direct question about us. Russell lifted an eyebrow. Did she now? What did you tell her? That we hadn't quite figured out the details yet. Which is the truth, is it not? He took her hand, his touch sending a little shiver up her arm. Only because I had to be sure of your feelings first. I do believe I have made my feelings quite clear, Mr. Blackburn, she teased. You certainly have, Miss Vance. His smile faded and his eyes got serious. But as you have often reminded me, there is a proper way to do these things. And with that, he reached right into his coat pocket. He pulled out a small velvet box. Tabitha's breath caught in her throat. Inside was a simple gold ring with a single beautiful pearl. It was my mother's, Russell said, his voice a bit rough. It is the only thing of hers I managed to keep. I never figured I'd have a reason to give it to anyone. He took her hand again, his touch so gentle. Tabitha Vance, you came to Texas to tame the meanest man in the state, but instead you taught him what it truly means to love. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife and be a mother to Emma and Billy? Tears of pure joy welled up in Tabitha's eyes. Yes, she whispered, and then said it louder. Yes, Russell. Nothing on earth would make me happier. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit like it was made just for her. Then he pulled her into his arms, and his kiss sealed their promise for a life together. When they finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead on hers, a gesture she had grown to love. We will have to wait just a little while to get married, he said. The house is not quite finished yet. To finish before winter. I do not mind waiting, Tabitha told him, as long as we are together. Together, he repeated. Always, Titha. That is my promise, and they stood in the Texas twilight, holding each other close. Tabitha thought about the wild journey that brought her to this moment. She had come out west to civilize a brute of a man, but she found one with a good heart and strong principles. He showed her a kind of love she never knew existed. Some folks might still call Russell Blackburn the meanest cowboy in Texas, but to Tabitha, Emma, and Billy, he was simply the best man they knew. He was honest, loyal, and his love was as big as the Texas sky. Their wedding was on a clear day in October, with the hills painted in autumn colors. The ceremony was at the new house Russell worked so hard to fix up. It was no longer a rundown place, but a warm and welcoming home. Judge Wilson married them, with Emma as her proud maid of honor. Billy stood by Russell's side as his best man, and all their friends were there. Even Montgomery showed up late, bringing fancy gifts for them, and it seemed like his way of making peace. Tabitha wore a lovely ivory gown, while Russell looked handsome in a new black suit. He stood tall and spoke his vows in a clear, strong voice. I, Russell James Blackburn, take you, Tabitha Ann Vance, to be my wife. To have and to hold, for better or worse, for richer or poorer. In sickness and in health, until the end. This is my solemn vow. As Tabitha said the words back to him, she felt a deep sense of peace. This was right where she belonged, with this man and these children. After the wedding, they had a big feast under the old oak trees. Some of the ranch hands played fiddle and guitar music. Russell led Tabitha in a dance, holding her close. Are you happy, Mrs. Blackburn? He asked. Completely, Mr. Blackburn, she answered, her heart feeling full to bursting. I'm still getting used to my new name, though. It suits you, he said with a warm smile. I am the lucky one here. I disagree, she said. I am so proud to be your wife, Russell, than words can rightly say. He held her close, his touch gentle for a man once known for his rough ways. That tenderness still took her by surprise, a sweet and welcome change. I love you, Tabitha, he said, his voice full of feeling. I love you too, she whispered back. She meant it with her whole heart, as the Texas sunset painted the big sky with color. Tabitha glanced at the happy crowd. Emma and Billy were dancing with pure joy. Miss Garcia was making sure everyone had plenty to eat, while the young men looked at the local girls. This wasn't just a party. This was her family now, her true home. It was a far cry from the life she'd imagined back in Boston, but it was so much better. It was richer and more real than any plan she could have made for herself. And at the center of it all was Russell, the toughest cowboy in Texas. He was the man who had opened his heart for her, choosing love over his lonesome ways. As lanterns began to glow, Russell quietly led her away from the celebration. On the porch of their new house, he took both of her hands in his. I've been thinking, he said seriously, about what we're building here, about our future. What is it, Russell? She asked, hearing the deep thought in his voice. I want this ranch to be a home for children who don't have one. He watched her face, waiting. Children just like Emma and Billy were. Too many little ones are growing up in places without a real family. A wave of pure love for this man washed over Tabitha. The man she was supposed to civilize had the kindest heart of all. Russell, that's a beautiful idea. We have the space and the means, she said with a warm smile. We can give them a real education, and more than that, a loving, stable home. He looked so relieved. You'd be willing to take on more children? More than willing, she assured him with all her heart. I'd be eager to. This is more than just teaching. This is building a family for children who need it most. Russell pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was everything to him. You are a remarkable woman, Tabitha Blackburn, he said softly. She smiled against his chest. It's been an hour or two. That's my mistake, he murmured, kissing the top of her head. One I aim to fix for the rest of our days. I'll be sure to hold you to that promise, Mr. Blackburn, she said, looking up at him. He leaned down and met her lips in a kiss that promised a lifetime of tenderness and love. Tabitha knew for certain she had found her purpose and her true love, not in some fancy Boston drawing room. She found it under the big Texas sky, with a man whose rough shell hid the most remarkable heart. As years passed, the Blackburn Ranch became known all over Texas. It was famous for its fine cattle and for its school that welcomed children who had nowhere else to turn. With Tabitha leading the way, the school program truly blossomed. It mixed book learning with real-life skills that would set those children up for a good future. Russell, once called the meanest cowboy in Texas, was now known as a fair and good-hearted rancher. He gave second chances to folks others had written off, treating them with a respect that brought out their best. Emma and Billy grew into fine, capable young adults. They were always sure that they were loved just for being themselves. Emma, with her sharp mind, went on to the university in Austin, all in her own good time. Billy, who loved the land just like Russell, became his partner in running the whole operation. And on those quiet evenings, when the chores were all done, Tabitha and Russell would sit on their porch, holding hands, watching the Texas sky catch fire at sunset. Did you ever imagine this life? Russell would sometimes ask, his voice still soft with wonder. Never, Tabitha would always answer honestly, but I wouldn't trade it for anything now. And this is right where I belong, with you and our family, under this endless skipame. And Russell, the man who had locked his heart away, would pull his wife closer. He thanked whatever brought Tabitha Vance to him, not to change him, but to love him enough to help him become the man he was always meant to be.